ओके ना आता?
हाँ सर, लिंक व्हॉट्सअपला पण टाकली आहे. ओके सर, येस 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 सर. सरांना कॉल करू.
कोणते सर?
जाल सर, डिस्टर्ब तू आले ना सर.
या
काय नाव आहे सरांचं?
हॅलो सर. हां या.
प्रिन्सिपल सरांची काय नाव आहे?
सर
training, etc. His PhD on emergence and growth of labor movement in Bombay between 1920 to 1945. He has received many scholarships for his
Thank you very much. Research is engaging predominantly what it is. Okay, let me just take this up. Shikha is saying, Wasim is saying pyramid, Mahendra is saying temple, Kasturi is saying pyramid, H. is saying pyramid, Jain Baby is saying pyramid. Okay, great. Some people are trying to make their presence here by typing text. Don't worry, you all will get it. Fine. Back pyramid. Okay, great. Now, where is the pyramid located?
लाईव्ह स्ट्रीमिंग रेकॉर्डिंग.
I get the answer, Egypt.
यूट्यूबला
Can I know
चालू
where in Egypt?
प्रेझेंटेशन.
Can I know where is where? Which part of Egypt? Which part? Muskan is given the answer here. Giza, okay. Anyone else who can answer? Which is saying Giza. Hira, Nile Bank, Giza. Now my third question. Do you know three pyramids
So when I showed you this, it was to generate ideas, explore. Correct? Second was description. You started describing it. What is it? Somebody said samosa. I go with samosa also. It looks like samosa. The person is looking at it from their perspective. What is descriptive? It is basically to identify or describe characteristics. Third is explanation. Third objective of research world is explanation. You explain it. If I would have asked you, let me continue the question. Why the pyramids were made? Can I just have explanation for that in 2 lines? Just 2 lines. Why the pyramids were made? Why the pyramids were made in Egypt? If you can type. To house the tombs of pharaohs. Very good. Religious purpose. Very good. Any other reason? For people typing. For protection. Okay. Memory. Very good. Burial places. Shikha Srivastav, correct? Belief of rebirth. For tombs, and now some say they connect themselves with their other planets. Basically, after life after death concept. Funerary monuments. Very good. Tombs of pharaohs. Very good. Now see, one structure, one monument explanations. To a great extent, all of you are right, for that matter. Now, if you want to establish only one theory out of this, I'm sure you will go with your one theory and you'll try to connect it with, you will take it all the way. There's another place called Valley of Kings. You can type on Google also and you can check. Or you can read it if at all you have access. Valley of Kings. Now, the point I'm trying to emphasize is explanation is third objective. Fourth objective is prediction. Something which you do not know. If I ask you who made the pyramids, you do not have the answer. But if I ask you who made the Sikandra fort, who constructed Sikandra fort? Who constructed Sikandra fort? Akbar, okay. Jahangir. If you go to see, Sikandra fort has an element of Akbar also, an element of Jahangir also. You know the names, but if I ask you who constructed the pyramid, you do not know. What you'll do is then you'll start have predictions. You'll use your imaginations. You'll give hypothetical answer in the research world when you're not certain about the facts. But what you refer to or what you suggest may become a fact. So when you're giving your hypothetical conclusions, you need to be very clear that what is the basis of this hypothetical, because what you write is sometimes referred to and quoted in the due course. And the last objective is influence. So we have 5 objectives: exploration, description, explanation, prediction, and finally influence. These are the 5 objectives of doing a research. Now, what are different strategies? We have research which is based on experiments. We have research based on surveys. We have research based on observations. We have research based on interpretations. We have research based on case studies. We have research which is action research, where you are into the field. And then we have mixed methods that matter. Survey based. I'll share an example with you. Few years back, we wanted to, as a part of my assignment, I always tell my students that whatever assignment you do, I give them options. I tell them one option is you do the assignments and it has only the shelf value. I'll give you marks. Marks is secondary for me now. I tell them if you're there to learn something from me, I'm ready to go that extra mile. But if you're only there to pass, don't worry. Because the teaching fraternity now knows to what scale the students have gone to and how many students are genuinely interested in learning. So I give them options. I said, you will be passed also, but if you want to learn something, let me know. Automatically, the class inclines towards something, which they are. Imagine I led a class of 120 students and we did 8 survey projects. 8. I'll share one survey, which is a research methodology again. Okay, quantitative, which people from political science can use, economics can use for that matter. We did a survey. I'm from Mumbai. We did a survey on women and public transport. In Mumbai, there are 2 primary transports, public transport. One is local train, second is BST buses. We surveyed 5,000 women. We prepared a questionnaire. And then we started finding out what other time scales and schedules where women feel unsafe. Early morning in the local train, 4:30 is the first local train, till 6 o'clock they feel unsafe. Post 10:30 to 1:30 is the last local train, they feel unsafe. On the bus stops where there are only single standy poles, they feel unsafe after 8 o'clock. What is that they should be doing? Now all these data, in fact, was collected, compiled into pie charts, and it was presented to the railway department as well as the BST chairperson. What was the outcome of this? This research done by the students was converted into a policy. If you today come to Mumbai, you'll see BST bus stops have this kiosks, advertisements are flashed. There is enough light illumination. In local trains, you'll see the LED panels now today where they display the helpline numbers. This is a survey I'm talking about 2012. Now you see research methodology which can be applied and where you're trying to influence also. You identify the problem and you play with the problem in a manner where you want a conclusive result. So your end objective is already defined in the beginning itself. This is what my research should be. Many times educational institutions only make their students work but not contribute. And there's a difference. Students like to contribute. The only thing is they need to channelize the energy. How do we channelize the energy? A lot many times it depends on the supervisor and on the teachers. How ably they can connect their research to something in this manner. There are 30 surveys, more than 30 rather, 40 surveys for that matter, which we have engaged in. Our last survey was used by the cybercrime department of Western region. We did impact of social media on youth as well as the cybercrime amongst the youth. We surveyed 2,000 students in the age group of 16 to 21 years old. Now I teach history, but I also teach a course called Foundation course, which is course on values. Now you are getting the element of research world. Now what is the research process? First of all, identify the research question. Define the problem. What is the problem? Because once you know what is the problem, then you will know how to go ahead, where you need to move further. Now, what are the research musts when you are trying to engage in research? Have you recognized the problem clearly? Then determine the information, okay, available on it, that matter in the domain. Try to see its accessibility. And then slowly and gradually, try to create a blueprint of it. Is it a qualitative research or it is a quantitative research? Try to describe it in a broader way. So then from a very macro, you can micro. Don't start with micro, because you will go into further ultra micro. When you have a macro, then you'll be able to narrow down your research more integratedly. State the objective and the purpose. Be clear with yourself. What is my objective? What is my purpose? For that matter. You will find research, in fact, has scope of study depending on the scope of study I want. It will always have limitation to the limitations I want. Now, when you started writing about tribes and tribal family, for that matter, can you name the state in India which has maximum tribal population? Can you state the name the state of India which has maximum tribal population? I know a place in India. Kindly type. I know a state where even now also, people engage in barter economy. I still know a place where they engage in barter economy. I have option of Tamil Nadu, Jharkhand, Arunachal Pradesh. Okay. Any other option? This state is centrally located in India. This state is centrally located in India. Of course, it got divided in the due course. I have an answer here, Madhya Pradesh. Now, if you want to ascertain which is the state with highest population, where will you find this data? Chalo, I want to ask you the source. Where will you find the data that which state has maximum tribal population? Where will you find this data? Tribal department, okay. Resources, census record. Somebody is writing Google. I said Google is not synonymous for research. If you start your research with Google, you have doomed yourself. Okay, my colleague Dr. Sangeeta will be discussing with you on some of those aspects. But in Google also, you should go to Google Scholar. Go to Internet Archives. You can download so many good data. You will go to the census. If not, okay, I got the answer. Shikha has given the answer. Ministry of Tribal Affairs. If not, then you'll go to, because these are all documents which you can rely upon. I'll come to that part. So when you say research, all research in some other way, in fact, tries to give you certain assumptions. And you culminate that into a qualitative research for that matter. There are 4 types of approaches to a research. Sorry, 3 types of approaches. One is positivist approach, where social reality is very objective. It can be tested for that matter. Social reality, when you document and you relate to, has to be unbiased. It is only based on observations and it is value free. That means you do not judge. That is a positivist approach. When you try to elaborate on theories, you try to elaborate on hypotheses, and these can be independently tested. That is a positivist approach for that matter. Then we have interpretative approach of research. Interpretative approach. What is the approach? This approach says social reality is socially constructed. And you say theories are reconstruction of facts. There is a very well-known historian by the name E.H. Carr. He had said, no documents, no history. Correct? I have a simple question. How many of you, not how many of you, I would rather say, graduate studies, anyone who's in the undergraduate study or masters, not undergraduate, PG, anyone who's studying graduation, if you can just specify what are you studying? If you can just specify what you're studying. Khushbu and Maushmi saying. Muskan, okay, yes. So, okay, can I take one of the students? Okay, fair. Now, listen to this example. There is a student who's studying PG mathematics in an institution. Okay, attendance nowadays, I don't know, is a complimentary, not compulsory anymore. Right? But suppose if you go for your PG courses and you attend lectures and attendance record is kept, your semesters are entered, when did you pay your fees, your fee receipt is entered, 20 years down the line, okay, 20 years or let's say 50 years down the line, let's say 50 years down the line, Your grandson or granddaughter comes to the same institution to find out about your PG records. Will that PG record be called as a source? Will that PG record of yours be called as a source? You studied computer science, biochemistry, whatever it is. Will that PG record be called as a source? If it will your grandson, granddaughter wants to come and access them. I have a simple question. It gives information about you, when you joined, when you passed out, how much fee you paid. I have answers. Shikha Shastri is saying no, Kushbu is saying yes, yes, Moshmi and Abdallah. There are only few people who are answering. I repeat my question. Your PG record when you studied post-graduation institution, if 50 years down the line it is accessed, will it be called as a source? My answer is no. It is not the source. Because it is accessed by your family member, you call it source, no, but it is only a data. We use it and we want to record it somewhere, that's why we make it as a source. So when the Britishers started documenting about the revenue records, it was not a source, it was only document, it was only records. Understand the difference here? We started accessing them and we made it as a source. Right? We are using it as a source. Understand this. That's why we call it as a source. But it was a data at that point of a time. Your PG document is a data, merely a data. Now, it can be interpreted in multiple ways. Right? So this is where is the interpretative comes for that matter. We also have something called critical approach for that matter. What is critical approach? It focuses on the critique. Okay, it tries to unfold the complexities or tries to project complexities for that matter. It tries to play with the social control, power dynamics. It also tries to at times overthrow the existing established order. That is what is a critical approach. So we have how many approaches I told you? Can you write in your answer? Write one answer. How many approaches I told you? Write as one answer. Huh? How many I have told you? Write their names. Write the names. Very good. I have the first answer already with me. Excellent. Positivist, interpretative, and critical. Correct? Now, you know, when we do qualitative is okay. When we do quantitative, we have sample, collection of sample. I'll very quickly, I'll do this and then I'll move forward. There are three types of sample collection in research methodology. One is called convenience sample. What is convenience sample? You choose your case study based on available data. Okay, so that is first convenience sampling, where the case study is readily available. Second is called snowball sampling. Snowball sampling, what does it mean? It emerges from your other source or your other data or your other case. So from that class, if 50 students are studied and they're asked, do you want any changes in the syllabus? Only 10 say yes. 40 say doesn't make any difference. So the 10 students further sampling will be taken. That is called snowball sampling. Third category is purposeful sampling in the qualitative data. Okay, you choose your theoretical framework for some explicit reason. So what you do is you identify a very exclusive kind of sampling there. You'll only choose students who have scored, let's say, first class in their BA examination. You'll only do their sampling. and their inputs, their insights for that matter. So we have three types of sampling. Okay. One is convenience, second is snowball sampling, and third is purposeful sampling. Okay. Now I'll come to Dr. Deshmukh. Just tell me how much time I have with me. I've also logged in through self. You can type. Please mute your audio. You can type. How much time I have? Do I have time?
Sir, you can take 10 minutes.
Because see, we are teachers. Unless the bell rings, we don't stop.
Okay, sir. Definitely.
You know, this is psychology. So we are like the guinea pigs and the rats in the cage. We only operate through bells. I'm sure when the college will reopen, we'll go to class. And I'm so sure most of us will ask the students, am I visible? Am I audible? This is what we will ask our students also. Okay, now I'll come to very quickly to the parts of research proposal. Okay, very quickly. I have 10 minutes. Now, research proposal, in fact, has around 10 to 11 elements to be taken care of. First is the title. Then you have the abstract of your research proposal. Then you have to give introduction or background. I repeat, title, abstract, introduction or background for that matter. Then you have to write problem statement. What is that you feel needs to be addressed? Then you have purpose or the rationale or the aim for that matter. Okay, it can also have the element of hypothesis also in that. Then you have the review of literature. You have methodology after that. What will the methodology? Qualitative, quantitative, research oriented when you're saying it should be sampling, survey. Okay. Then you have the significance, the implication of this research. That is, in what way it will contribute to the existing research world for that matter. Then you have the overview of the chapters. Then you have your plan of work. You design your plan of work. That is what I call as a blueprint. And finally, your bibliography. When I did my research, my area of research is labor studies. Okay, so when I did my research, I started collecting my data. And I did my PhD thesis because my papers were already published on the area I wanted to do research. You know, this is a very strange world. Academic is a very strange world. I had 5 research paper publication in international journals, but people still would condemn me because I did not have doctorate degree. So I was a mismatch because I did not do my doctorate. And I would ask them, I would say, you know, once I do my doctorate, I'll get saturated. Because a doctorate only does in research in that area only. I want to play in the arena. Now my research papers are in human rights also. My research papers on cinema also for that matter. I want to play with the knowledge. Allow me to play with the knowledge anyway. So I finished my entire thesis writing, research, including research, primary data collection, everything in 2 years. My university took 1.5 years to correct it. Interesting? Yeah, that is the irony in academic world today. We are doing PhD to show other than to contribute. When we will have the sense of doing PhD to contribute in the research world, that will be the real tribute to the research culture. But unfortunately, we have lost that essence of research today. Anyway, I don't want to be critical in my approach here, but these are the parlances. When I went to submit my research, I was asked, "Are, evada lawkar sampolo?" I said, oh, should I take more time? They're like, no, you have to take minimum 24 months to finish. I said, yeah, okay, fine. I'm submitting my synopsis. So I was like, fine, okay. And then I was told, your research work should be more than 400, 500 pages. And I was really wondering, what do I do? Because my area of research was a very micro area of research. Labor studies in 1920 to 1945 in Bombay. And I had addressed all the elements. What I'm trying to emphasize, don't go by my experience, but you need to be very clear about many times. Sometimes you have to go by the guidelines because your academics and your career is dependent on that anyway. But your title should be very clear. Okay, when you design your proposal, it should be self-explanatory rather than very ambiguous. It should be indication of the type of research. Like for example, role of so or study of so and so for that matter, And then, so it has to have a very clear element of explanation. So you don't have to bother about explaining your title at least. Title clarity in fact gets you the first round automatically. Then is the abstract. What is the abstract? Abstract basically is the review or the overview of your proposal. It is a summary of the elements involved in that or the background of study. Okay, the process adopted. That is what the abstract generally should be all about. Now the purpose and aim. This is very, very important because if you do not know the purpose of your study, many students, Mark Twain had said very beautifully once, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. Many times scholars or academicians, they enroll, they register for PhD and their PhD becomes a history or they complete in record time. Because once you get disconnected from your orientation and your research world, you cannot come back. Our mind is very intelligent. We are not intelligent. We have smartphones today, okay, but we are still not smart. We do not understand that Google is tracing even this meeting now. Anyway, our mind is very smart. What we do is we start giving excuses for not doing research. And we convince ourselves also, अरे ये झालं, ते झालं, असं झालं, तसं झालं, ये हुआ, वो हुआ, मैं research नहीं कर पाता. So if my aim is very clear, my purpose is very clear. Okay, your research chapter or the proposal chapter should explain very well, very clearly what is the goal, what are the research objectives of the study, and also reflect the original contribution you would make into the research world. Okay, provide a detailed account of the points which you would like to address for that matter. Be clear with what your study will address and what it will not address also. I repeat once again, be clear with your research, what it will address, what it will not address also. My topic was studying the labor movement of Bombay 1920 to 45. I made it very clear, Bombay means Bombay city, not Bombay presidency. My limitations also need to be categorically clear also. Otherwise, I keep on orbiting. Research world is an ocean, but you should have a compass in your hand. Only then you will get the direction. Otherwise, you will keep on sailing as the wind goes. Every document will be appealing to you. End of the day, it's like shopping in DMart or Big Bazaar. Some of you who are senior like me, people who are born in Doordarshan age, I am born in Doordarshan age. When we would go to the grocery shop, we would go with a small pauti and chit. I don't know if Dr. Deshmukh would remember this. And we would say, "Arda kilo sakar, 1 kilo hai," right? And we would get what we would required. That is what is the research all about, basically. Now, when you enter in this big, huge shopping malls, you end up buying 30% of things which are only flashy. You just buy them because of the offer, or you buy them because they look good or they're tempting. So it's a basket which you need to know what you have to put in. So your purpose and your aim should be very clear. Also, most important, include the research questions which you will be addressing. What is that you want to address? Include subsection if it requires. Defining the important terms for that matter. What will you contribute? And what is the novelty of your research? Most important. What is the novelty? In what way it will be? Moving further, very quickly, hypothesis. What is a hypothesis? It's a proposition basically. It's a proposition. You're trying to propose that this is what I'll be establishing. It can always go exactly opposite to what you had proposed. No issues. But at least you are trying to identify. It may get diluted in the course or it may get established. And the hypothesis must be adequate for its purpose. And it should be much better than its rivals for that matter. Hypothesis can be directional also, it can be non-directional as well. So your entire theoretical framework makes more sense. It defines your nature of work. Okay, it gives the direction of the work. It gives a logical base for developing your hypothesis for that matter. It represents, most important, your beliefs and explains why you believe so. We have types of resources, or you call it sources. Primary and secondary. Primary, as you know, information which is obtained in the first-hand manner of the researcher based on the researcher's interest, and information which is already existing. Okay. Now, when you get information, when you get data, you have to go and do systematic literature review. Many times people do not even know what is a literature review. They just copy paste whatever they read and study. What are the sources of literature which you will perhaps go and refer to? You will refer to books and journals. Now you will refer to electronic database. You will also refer to bibliographic database. When you read an author, his author gives the sources. You can refer to his sources and then find out more information. You can refer to government records, industry reports, etc. You have online research journals. You have research dissertations in the thesis department, which research scholars do not begin with at all. First and foremost, they should do is, has the research been done on the topic I am taking? They should go to the thesis department of that university and check, if nothing else, a catalog for that matter. What is important literature review here? Read relevant literature only. What is relevant to you? Otherwise, it is that big bazaar. You should know what to eliminate. Everything will be lucrative and tempting. You should know what to eliminate. Refer primarily to the original sources. Try to refer to original sources. Begin. If they are available, try to trace them. Read with comprehension. Read in time. Whenever I take a book, I tell the book, I talk to the book first. I tell the book, today is Tuesday. After Friday, I will not see your face. And the book listens to me. Interesting? But I have seen many of my friends, they carry that one book for one semester throughout. And I ask them, kitna padha? Nahi padh nahi paya, kholna hai kitab. I could not start reading. You have to tell the book, I am not going to pamper you. And then that's how you have to read in time. You have to finish your reading references in time. Otherwise, they will keep on pending. And then after some time, you just discard them. That is wrong research culture. Index the research, index the literature. Whatever you read, index them. Initially, there were sources defined or written in the cards. Now we do not use the cards for that matter. At one point of a time, research was done on the basis of the sources cards. Now you list them down. Why listing is important? Whatever you read, list them down. Author, publication, year, whatever. What is the advantage? It helps you in the final information for your notes or footnotes, or another advantage is when you design the bibliography. I added one more aspect. I also would add where I got that source from, which library. Did I access it from VV Giri National Institute, Delhi? Did I access it from National Archives, New Delhi? Did I access it from Teenmurti Library? And I would write where did I get it from, and I would also write the catalog number of that library. So in case if I have to refer it and go back to that book or that source again, I know where to go and how to find it. So you can trace back your work for that matter. I will go very quickly. When you do research review or literature review, okay, you have literature review, which is more on the theoretical aspect, framework. Second aspect is systematic aspect, systematic review. And third is meta-analysis. Literature review on the basis of interpretation, you know. Systematic review, basically where you gather articles using predefined search strategy. Systematic review, again I repeat, gather articles where you're using predefined search strategy. And again, what you do is you summarize the quality of the data which you have managed to access and the results of the data of your references or reading. Then you have meta-analysis review. Literature review is interpretative. Systematic review, I told you, meta-analysis is do systematic review for that matter, okay, of available data without any biases. Obtain as much as possible in the format of primary data. Okay, and then you can establish it with your secondary data. A comparative can be done for that matter. Review of literature. How other literatures have reflected on the topic you are studying. The different perspective and dimension other literature has on the area of your study. The way other authors correlated the topics with allied fields for that matter. Also understanding the methodology. So when we do literature review, you need to also see that part. While going through my college library, my college is 150 years old, St. Xavier's College. I went to some of the nook and corners where even the librarian and the staff had not reached. Every day I would come with my hands full of dust. History is archival. If you see your hand lines, then you have not done research. It has to be covered with the dust unless you wear gloves. I started exploring, I started digging, and I for my surprise and for my college surprise also, I found a Labour Commission report of 1931. And Labour Commission report, they had printed only 100 copies, only 100 copies. And Xavier's College had that one copy. And I was dancing with joy. I said, oh, wow. And I went to my principal, I said, we need to treasure this. And he said, oh, we did not know. I said, yes, it's a Labour Commission report. What I'm trying to tell you is your entire perspective, your entire understanding is, where do I find my sources? And then can I correlate the sources? So my labor studies with the labor report. And that is a primary source. That matter. Can I correlate it? Of course I can correlate it. It gives us different approaches of the study. It justifies also why I am doing the study as well. For that matter. It gives a wider perspective, and moreover, it gives us a cross-disciplinary approach. Why literature review should be done? To develop critical assessment. Literature review also is done to show that so-and-so work has these gaps. Identify potential gaps and say, my research will contribute in filling those gaps, will bridge those gaps. Also to reflect that how this research has current value or the future value, for that matter. It also should be done to understand how a structured research or how study may look like when we do literature review, for that matter. It gives us a very comprehensive view of published or unpublished work. Most important aim of literature review is to find out the problems that already are investigated and how they're investigated, and if a further element of investigation is required or not. Otherwise, we will be on our own and we will not know this kind of a data or this kind of a study is done and there is nothing new which we are contributing. It helps us to prepare our own research design. Most important. We have data collection as a part of methodology. Data collection, I have done documentaries. I worked on an oral research project on interviewing Sindhis. Sindhi community is a community the ones who migrated from Pakistan to India. This was a research project I had done in 1999. So my process was interviewing them. From manual interview, in the due course, I shifted to the documentary interviews. In 2008, I went to 4 districts of Maharashtra, that is Vidarbha, Yavatmal, Amravati, Wardha, and Nagpur, to study the farmer suicide. It is not part of history. It was part of my passion of research. I did a documentary of 20 hours. When we do this is called oral history, oral documentation. When we do data collection in this format, you'll always find that they give the best interview where the camera is switched off, not when the camera is on. You have to make them comfortable. So when you have data collection method like this, interviews, you have to make them comfortable about what is that you want from them. So there should be a pre-runner before you switch on the camera. You should make them comfortable. Take them away from the camera angles, and you can document. This is also research. It's a new era of research we are emerging in. Another area of research, data collection, is in questionnaires. I told you about the questionnaires. Then we have research based on the observations. How consumers behave. It's an area of research for economics. An environment where there are freebies displayed on the shelves. We have field research for data collection. Then we have tests, various types of tests which are used by students of psychology. And then we have document analysis. When we have questionnaires in that, we need to classify the data. Is it personal? Okay, or it's a very generalized data. The question sequence also matter. The wordings in the questionnaire also matter. Either are they direct or they're indirect. When you record interviews also, how do you do it? Do you do it on telephone? Do you do it on camera? Do you take down the information? You record them merely? You need to be very clear about some of these aspects. Use the process called funneling. What funneling does? It eliminates the irrelevant data, what we don't require, for that matter. I was serving the tribes in Dhule area, the Paura tribe in 1998. It was again part of my oral history project. Now this tribals, when you go to do this kind of ethnographic study, you should not become an element of surprise for them. Your dress code also should be equally taken care of. How you address your questions to them. You should know the local language to everything. These are small nitty-gritties of your research world, for that matter. To come to my conclusion, when you submit your research or when you submit your thesis, okay, each chapter should have 3 components very clearly. Introduce why you're examining this. In the content, show that you have examined and you've studied this. And in conclusion, okay, you give the insight, what is the output after examining and after studying this. So introduce, saying that we will study this. In the content, second part, you say we have studied this, or we have examined this. In conclusion, what is the outcome of that? Generally, people have main problem is writing too much. Remember, a good answer should know where to stop. I repeat once again, a good answer should know where to stop. There is a very well-known Nobel Prize winner, John Nash. Read his work. I repeat his name, John Nash. He submitted his PhD thesis of only 27 pages. Game theory and differential geometry. John Nash, American mathematician. 27 pages. His PhD thesis, which won him Nobel Prize. What do the examiners generally do when they check your research? What they see basically is your review of literature. They see your methodology. They see the presentation of your research and your results. And they see the discussion you have had in the research, and they see the conclusion. So in all, what I would say, as Napoleon Hill had said, a goal is a dream. It's a deadline. So if you start your research, have deadline for your research as well. Okay. And methodology is something which is a bracket. You need to do your research in that bracket. Unless you are extra enterprising, then you can get your own bracket for that matter. Okay. I would like to conclude my, somebody's audio is on. Ajay sir, your audio is on, I think.
Yeah, yes.
I would like to conclude my this wonderful quote by Will Harvey. What is research but a blind date with knowledge? Will Harvey had said, what is research but a blind date with knowledge? Thank you very much for this invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. What a brilliant and engaging lecture that we have witnessed here today. And I'm really happy that you were there on this panel as an inaugurator of this research methodology workshop. Words are effeminate to express thanks that you deserve, because irrespective of so many medical emergencies, personal issues, you kept your commitment. And that's where, a wonderful human being I have witnessed here, apart from the scholar that you are famous, and then philanthropy that you are engaged in through your Kash Foundation, and the way you are engaging your developmental programs with CAPD. And really, we are happy for having you on this occasion with all of us. We'll have a brief question and answer session. We'll take at least 2 to 4 questions. If you have anybody have any questions, so you can ask to sir. It's over to sir and the delegates.
Hello, sir. May I ask you a question, sir?
Yeah. Please go on.
Yes, please, you can ask questions.
Sir, as you know, just when we are collecting data, we use a questionnaire. Just like if we are using a questionnaire and we are analyzing our data in SBSS, and when we need to just get a correlation about 2 variables, which one is better, Pearson correlation or Spearman correlation?
Thank you for your question. See, when we design a questionnaire, for that matter, first of all, if at all you're very clear with your target audience, correct? And then you're clear with what exactly is the purpose of your study. Many times, our questionnaire also drifts from our purpose of study and the purpose of conclusion. I would like to draw out, I'll give you an example. We did a survey. We want to understand the stress management, okay, at workplace. Now, the stress management at workplace, okay, we could do it across with all the categories of people who are working, or we wanted to make it on a very micro level. And we wanted to correlate stress as well as the stress in this sector. So we surveyed the bus drivers and conductors, okay, who ply buses in Mumbai, and they work for on an average 8 to 10 hours. Sometimes their place of work and their area of work, the route they ply on, also takes a toll on them, because it automatically comes to 13 to 14 hours of staying away from their house, because their communication or the commuting time also gets added to it. So we wanted to understand this entire dynamic. Our purpose basically was, how do we ease the stress level of the workers in this particular, or the drivers and conductors in this particular sector. We surveyed 1200 BST conductors and drivers. So our objective basically was to identify. So when you try to have a correlation here, when you try to identify what is my objective is to highlight. And my objective is to create some kind of a guidelines here, okay, which can be used, which can be adopted to study this phenomenon. So when we try to frame our questionnaire, okay, we had to ask them where they stay, the time they take to commute to the depots, the BST bus depots where they are deputed to work, the time again they take to go back. Sometime when they start, it's a peak hour, or sometime when they return back, it's a peak hour. We had to identify those bottlenecks also. And then, for example, since I don't think so you're from India, but we have a place called Nalasopara in Mumbai, and the bus driver would ply at Mulund to Ghatkopar. Now this place where he's staying, okay, is almost 30 kilometers away from the route he's working. But naturally, his driving skill will get affected. It is also putting the commuters at risk. The level of accidents would definitely increase. These were the characteristics we managed to also identify. Okay, how many accidents have occurred in the past because of your driving skills? And then try to connect it. So if you go to see, your questionnaire has to be so carefully crafted. It's a very meticulous affair. In fact, some of my questionnaires go through 8 and 9 drafts, and then we reach out to the final questionnaire. And on occasion, it has also occurred that when we go out for the questionnaire, for the sampling, we have to withdraw also, because certain elements we have not engaged. So what I do now is, I try to have a sample study first. If I want to study the BST conductors and drivers, I will take only 10 conductors and drivers first, give them the sample say forms, and then they give inputs. अरे सर तुम्ही हे टाकलं नाही, सर हा एलिमेंट तुम्ही घेतला नाहीये, आपने ये एस्पेक्ट लिया नहीं है, थोड़ा इसको भी लेके आओ, थोड़ा इसको भी लेके आओ. अब एक एस्पेक्ट हमने डाला नहीं था, that was the medical attention to them. Their restrooms were in dilapidated conditions, no provisions available. They said, you also, since you're bringing out this, you also put this aspect also, that we do not even have a comfortable restrooms where we can rest for some time. We do have medical counters, but then the medicines are not adequate. Now these new research problems emerged, but they are integrated. We had to correlate them that way. So what I feel again is, when you design a questionnaire, you need to have your end objective very clear. This is what I want to identify. This is what I want to find out. This is what I am looking at. Then your drafting automatically is taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. It was the apt answer regarding the questionnaire framing. And it's indeed, you should keep your objectives before you while drafting your questionnaire, and then you can proceed with the pilot project. And after getting some lacunas over there, after due inquiry, you can incorporate the changes into the final draft. It's a really wonderful thing that listening to Dr. Avkash Jadhav sir, when he has started engaging the delegates into his lecture. When he has shown lapis lazuli, I instantly remember the poem by W. Bates. When he has shown pyramids, then once again we went back into the memory lens when we used to study W. Bates, his second coming. So research is like that. It takes you somewhere. And the way he has elaborated on each and every aspect of research pertaining to the how ethnography, autoethnography can be there as a method, and you can start your inquiry, the various types of methods that you can incorporate in your research. how to collect data, the various sources of collecting data, then methods of data collection tools, how to collect the data, and even he has touched the aspects where you can have data analysis. You can have your tools. Nowadays in social science we use SPSS, and we use SPSS. A descriptive statistics is there, then referential statistics is there. So it gives a more scientific approach to your research. And he has at length has focused on a review of literature, what to read, what not to read, and how to focus on that, and what should be the aim, and how to address the research gap, and how your research would be bridging that gap. So it was really our pleasure on our part, being an organizer and participant into this methodology workshop, that you have touched upon all theoretical aspects of the research. Thank you very much for having with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With your kind permission, yes, sir, thank you. We'll proceed with our next session continuously without any gap. I am thankful to Dr. Avkash Jadhav sir only, because he has recommended the next resource person for this seminar. And today we have with us Dr. Sangeeta Puttiyadar, who is working right now. She is assistant professor in the University of in the Department of Materials Development and Evaluation, the English and Foreign Language University, which is called as with a great fondness, we call it as a CFL. We have so many memories with that. While doing my own research, we have visited CFL time. Now it's called as IFLU. Looking at going through her biodata, there's a tremendous work she has done in the academics. She has PhD in the English and Foreign Language University. In 2016, she has completed a MPhil from the University Pondicherry Central University way back in 95. She did a MA in 1993 from Calcutta University. What a wonderful she is part of the heritage, educational heritage. Right now, she's working at IFLU. She has so many research works and publication to her credits, like she has wrote on Theum and Hinduism, and all these publications that she has, they are from international publication in real sense, having great impact on research community. She has talked about sexism and naturalism in Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Then she has elaborated on resisting dispossessions, a praxis perspective of the fourth world literature. She is talking there. Then Bathala comes back, finding the new from the old. She has studied there in De Natura Fidei, on the nature of faith. It is published by Palgrave and then Macmillan, New York. These all are reputed publications. So considering, and she being located into a profession where she is directly addressing to the problems, how to prepare the material, and how to incorporate that into the research and your studies. So I found that she must speak on the academic writing. Once you did your research methodology workshops, you have finalized your things, and right now you're sitting for writing your report, and you are in the hell of the mess. And writing helps you to overcome these all problems. And I don't think there's anybody else who can speak aptly on this topic than Dr. Sangeeta ma'am. So, Dr. Sangeeta ma'am, welcome.
Thank you, Deshmukh.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, ma'am. You are.
Or should I use a headphone?
You're audible, ma'am, as per your convenience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I take charge to Dr. Sangeeta ma'am, and I hope this would be the engaging journey and enlightening one, because all as we are writing our thesis papers as a student, especially MPhil, PhD, and even in our post-graduation dissertations,
then how to argue, how to give
we
arguments, then how to support it with logical and critical arguments. So I hope that this would be very enlightening
should
session,
be logical
and I give
session, and I give hand over the charge to Dr. Sangeeta.
go ahead,
So please go ahead, ma'am, with your lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Deshmukh. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. If I am not audible, please let me know.
You're audible, ma'am.
You're audible, ma'am.
Sorry, I was trying to cut the ambient noise. Okay, my topic today is academic writing in research. Now, this is a topic that all of us, whether we are students or faculty members, have to deal with. It encompasses what is academic writing. In research, it encompasses term papers, MA dissertations, MPhil, PhD thesis, journal articles, or minor and major projects. So what I will focus on today is journal articles, so that we can have a better medium of expression where our research is reflected, reaches others, and in today's world, it is actually difficult to be in academics without publishing. So how do we go about publishing? Now, I will not really focus on just writing a dissertation or a thesis, because the procedure for both are actually the same. But it will help me if I can focus on one rather than the general or different topics. So how do we go about it? Is writing that is for research different from academic writing, general academic writing? Question number one. Then what is the methodology for writing for research? And the most crucial one, as teachers, can we teach, and as students, can we learn how to write for research? Now, for all these questions, actually the answer is yes. And since Dr. Jadhav has extensively dealt with methodology, I will focus on academic writing. Now, for a good term paper, research paper, or a dissertation, the first step is to identify an area of research, or what is known as a research question. Okay, this is actually very, very crucial, because it will determine whether our research is successful or not. Choose a difficult author or area, and you will find that it becomes very, very complicated. Okay, something that does not gel with you, something that you cannot work with, and you will find that the research becomes a kind of a weight on your shoulder. It will pull you back instead of letting you free. Okay, or else you might find that the topic you have chosen has been overexposed. Too many people have worked on this. This means that your research, the years that you spend on it, the work that you put in, actually is wasted. In the worst case scenario, you can even be charged with plagiarism. Okay, so you do not want that. Now, what can you do that? You will end up actually selecting an author. The other option, you will end up selecting an author where there is no research. This also can be difficult, because all said and done, we as researchers cannot begin from scratch, cannot begin with nothing. Okay, not just the primary text. Of course, your contribution will be valuable then, but it requires a lot of time and the kind of commitment that is required for original research. You will have to actually take a sabbatical, okay, which very few of us can afford to do. So the overexposed authors are out. the completely underexposed authors are also out. Then comes, so you have selected your author. Now you do not have to begin with an author. I am focusing on research in English literature or ELE, basically because you see, I am from that background, and though I see that many of you are from different backgrounds, this is just a preliminary or prelude to what I am focusing on writing. So these are steps that will facilitate the easy accomplishment of your task. So the first step is to make sure that you have a good topic or an author. Okay. Now, if you are choosing a topic, you can choose, for instance, something like insider, outsider, or the focus is not exactly on the author, but it's on the topic. Or else you can identify the author, look at his works, and then choose the topic from within. Okay, which means that, let us say you are taking Arundhati Roy and you look at her work, you see that she has both fictional and non-fictional writing. What do you want to focus on? Okay, so you begin with the author, not the topic. Or else you can first select a theoretical framework, like let us say disability studies, post-colonialism, gender studies, or eco-criticism, and then choose an author based on your theoretical framework. This also can be very interesting. But again, the issue is the author you choose has to reflect, or she or he has to, her work has to reflect the theoretical framework that you have chosen. Should be a good example of what you have chosen. Then you can write. So once you have selected the topic or the author or the theoretical framework, now begins, how do I actually find, okay, how do I narrow it down? Because the area is broad, it could be an author, it could be a topic, it could be a framework. How do I narrow it down? Now, this is an area where quite a few of us find that we are stuck. We find it can be repetitive. We do not have a new area or aspect to contribute. So one way of going about it is looking at other papers, what the research that has happened, not necessarily in your area. It can be anywhere else. You look through the abstracts or topics that are covered in either conferences or journals, you will find that there are very interesting research happening. So, for instance, recently someone sent me an abstract for a book. The topic was the interstice of border and gender. Very interesting topic. Or else it could be, for instance, someone or many journals are focusing on pandemic and different aspects of pandemic, because we are currently living with a pandemic. So the thing is, you will find that there are quite a lot of research happening and very interesting topics or titles out there. You can adapt it or utilize it, apply it to some other author and use it as your working title. Okay, this is also true of conferences. Many conferences publish concept notes, and again you will find that they deal with cutting edge research, quite often very interestingly explored. So you can actually use this as your starting point. Now, once you have decided on a working title is important because it will help you focus your research. Once you have selected a working title, what you will have to do is start making a bibliography. Now, this is again a working bibliography. This is not exactly the final bibliography, so you can afford to be a little broad. You can go around the area, start creating a working bibliography. And for working bibliography, because we live in well-connected times, because of the access to internet, we can find that Many of the resources are available online. Okay, please do not take any material from Wikipedia. I have found sometimes students, even senior students, research scholars, or young teachers making the same error. They quote from Wikipedia. Wikipedia, the specific article might be written by a reputed scholar, but because it is Wikipedia, you cannot quote, use it as a reference. So what you will have to do is you will have to actually search for the original article and then quote from that. Okay, so what you have to do is make a working bibliography. To make a working bibliography is actually pretty easy now. One is the only problem actually with the current rate of publication, the rate of access is your bibliography might actually become unwieldy, too big. The problem is not too little material. The problem is actually too much material. So how do you go about it? You have to quickly learn how to discard material. Okay, so once you create a working bibliography, be ruthless, eliminate everything that will not help you actually write your paper of thesis. So what you have to do is gesture your topic, refine your topic, and then gesture it. Gesture your author. Look at all the entries that come. Search, download only the ones that you require. If you feel that this might be helpful at a later date, you can download that as well. But be very careful when downloading, because as I told you, the problem with today's students or scholars is not paucity of material, but too much of material. Okay. Now, some of you may not actually have access to gesture, but then there are sites, library sites, where you can borrow a book for 15 days. These books are not downloadable, but you can borrow it and you can return it. So for 15 days, you can actually keep that book, read it. If it is necessary, note down your points, and then you can return it. So you have a working bibliography. You have done your search. Now you have gone through the available secondary material. You have to go back again to the primary material. Okay, you begin with the primary material. You have identified your area of research. Then you do a quick survey of secondary material available on that particular topic, on that particular author. If it is, as I told you, too overexposed or too much of research has happened in that particular area, avoid it. Do not go there. Modify it, tweak it a little bit so that your research is not repetitive of research that has already happened. So let us say you return once again to the primary text. Now you have, your eyes have broadened, your horizon has broadened. You have read the secondary material. Then you will, when you will be reading your primary text again, you will be reading it with fresh eyes. You will notice aspects that were not there earlier. So now that you have read your primary text again, you are actually ready to, as you are reading itself, you are ready to note down points, because our thoughts work in very interesting ways. Sometimes we get an idea, then it is gone. So make it a habit to note down what you think. Note down if you want to find out more about this. Note down if you really want to do a little bit more research on a particular topic or discuss it with someone else, your guide probably. So as you read the primary material again, note down your thoughts, note down areas which you need to explore further, note down also questions that you have. This is very, very important because again, it may not recur. Okay. As you are reading, you might also notice quotations or lines that you would like to quote. Now, it's very important that you actually copy the quotation very carefully and write it down. If you are using a hard copy, if it's a soft copy, copy paste. But again, be very, very careful when you are using, when you are noting down lines which you can use for quotation. Please note the page number. At the end, you do not want to waste very valuable time, because at the end you will be stressed. You do not want to waste that time searching for that elusive quotation which you really want to use but you can't find. Okay, so as you write down quotations, please add the page number. Okay, now you are actually ready for writing. You have a working title, you have done a little bit of preliminary work. Write an abstract. It need not be a perfect abstract. It need not be an abstract that you will actually use, but keep an abstract. This will be a kind of a plan, a flow plan that will help you keep within the parameters of your research. Otherwise, you will find that we humanities people go all over the place. If you have an abstract, you can keep yourself focused. Okay. Now, one very important aspect that many humanities students, scholars forget is that what is a research question? You have identified your area, you have identified your author, you have identified secondary material, primary material, everything is set. But do you actually have a research question? Or are you just exploring an aspect and putting forth your findings? If you want to publish, you will find that having a research question, exploring it, and then reaching a conclusion makes it a lot more easy to get yourself published. If you do not have, if it is just an expository kind of a paper, you will find it that much harder to find a publisher. If it is good, you will find that if a good paper comes from actually having a question, a research question. Okay. So now all the preliminary steps are over. I'll repeat it once again. First, you need to identify a topic or an author or a framework. Of course, you will need to have all three when you actually write. Okay. Then you need to have a working bibliography. You need to have a working title. You need to have a working abstract. I call it all working because you are not going to probably use any of these things, but these are the things that will keep you focused. Okay, now comes the actual writing. Now, this is an area where I teach. I actually teach academic writing to MA students. So, unfortunately, what happens is that my students, though they have finished their bachelor's, they have come for their master's, they have written and passed a rather tough exam like EFLU entrance, and then still they hardly know how to write. Okay, because they have never been taught how to write. So I generally begin at the very beginning. Okay, I begin with paragraphing. I teach them how to create a good paragraph. That is, each paragraph should have a main topic. The topic should be expanded in the following sentences, and it should have an internal structure. Okay, do not put disparate ideas in a paragraph. Now, we all think that, of course, we know how to write. Paragraphing is the basic rubric of writing. So what is so great about it? Actually, it is not so. You will find that writing a paragraph itself is an art, and the more important thing is how there is a flow between paragraphs. Paragraphs should not read as disparate ideas just blocked randomly together, just put randomly together. It should have a flow of thought. It should have a flow of ideas. It should not have contradictions within itself. Okay. Now, even something as simple as using linkers or connective verbs is important. Also important is the use of varied vocabulary. Do not use the same word in one paragraph again and again. Use of thesaurus. When you use a thesaurus, make sure that you are not using thesaurus has this, you see, thesaurus do not give you exactly word meanings. They give you words which are adjacent in meaning, which are similar in meaning. So when you are using a word from a thesaurus, please check the meaning in a dictionary as well. In fact, keep both on your computer as soft copy, a thesaurus as well as a vocabulary, for vocabulary as well as a dictionary, so that you can check both. See that your writing is rich in vocabulary and is not repetitive. Okay. Then these things, as I told you, are available online. It is freely downloadable. So keep these things as part of your research. Now, when you write, you will find that it is, yes, true. Someone has written that it becomes boring when you use the same vocabulary. It is true. Also, when you write, you will find that you are not satisfied with your writing. It happens to everyone. It happens to people who are experienced. It happens to beginners. So don't get stuck. Now, this is an important thing. If you are writing and you're not satisfied with it, don't get stuck. Keep writing. Your writing will actually draft. Then you can work on it. It's much more easy to work on a draft than begin again from the first line onwards. So if you are not satisfied with your writing, do not panic. Do not feel discouraged. Keep writing and you will find that it gets better. It becomes a lot more easy. Okay. Now, let us say that you finished your thesis or you finished your first chapter. It is important that you take a break. Switch off your computer, watch movies, listen to music for 2 days or 3 days or a week. Take a break. It will give you much needed distance. Then when you go back to your draft, you are actually reading it with fresh eyes. You can redraft it better. You can spot the areas that are uneven. You can spot things that you did not notice before. Grammatical errors, vocabulary inconsistencies, tense inconsistencies. All these things you will notice later, or else actually lack of logic. Okay? So you will find that all these things happen. And now you are ready to rectify these things. Begin only you began, write a new abstract and refine your draft. Now, when I am writing, I actually sometimes discard the draft altogether because sometimes it becomes a kind of a chain. It keeps you back rather than lets you move forward. I sometimes actually discard a draft and begin anew. But my work, which has gone into the first draft, is useful here because it actually makes my thinking and writing so much more easy. Now, your second draft is ready. Okay? Again, if it is possible, take a break or else now start reading it as an editor. Do not think of it as your own writing. Look at it critically. Look at it as though you are correcting your students' writing. Or else you're reading someone else's writing. You will find that there are a lot of areas which you actually are not satisfied with. and you would like to rework once again. Now we are on to the third draft, by the way. Okay. This is also the time when you eliminate what is superfluous. You see, you have written something very interesting, and you like what you have written. Now it is there in your draft, but it does not actually belong to that draft. It is something that has gone off on a tangent. You are not exactly the flow of it. Cut it off. Cut it out without any compunction, because though your word limit might go down a little bit, don't worry about it. The internal logic is more important than the word count. Okay. Now this might sound elementary to you, because most of you are senior scholars or else young academicians. So, but some of you might have to check whether there is a mix-up of tenses. This happens to quite a lot of students. You begin with past tense or you go to some future. I mean, there might be a mix-up of tenses, or else you might use passive voice. Okay, so if you are a science student, yes, passive voice is what you use. But if you are a humanities student, passive voice is not to be recommended. Okay, especially if you are writing for literature, don't use passive voice. And again, grammar, be very careful. Another issue to avoid is long sentences. Long sentences which are run on cause innumerable difficulty, because one, it will naturally cause mix-up of tenses and other things. But other than that, sometimes you find that sentences hang. Okay, you must have begun with a conditional clause, but it does not continue. So avoid these kind of grammatical errors. As I told you, I'm sure all of you know it, but it might happen again. That is why I'm just mentioning it once again. Okay. So now your draft is ready. You have finished checking the logic. You have finished checking the grammar. You have finished checking the vocabulary. Your draft is ready. Okay. Now comes methodology. Avkash has already spoken to you quite a bit about methodology, but what I will focus on is only on citation. Okay. When you read next, that is your final paper or your final thesis, when you read, please ensure that you have all the citations. Now, the best of us will forget including one or two authors in the bibliography. So, what I have learned in the course of my writing is that the moment I come across a name of a secondary source or the text, I immediately put a search on it. Okay? I will ensure that each author I'll put a search and each author is mentioned in the bibliography. That way, you can avoid missing out authors, because editors will send you back your paper, or else your examiner will say that I couldn't find this particular author, you see, in the references. So to avoid that, the moment you come across a name or a text mentioned or a book mentioned or a data mentioned, see that you have immediately put a search on it. You will immediately find it if it is mentioned in the bibliography. If it is missing in the bibliography, you will find that also. Now, for quotation, my guide had taught me that the rule is 3 words. Read each 3 words at a time, check it in the original. Next 3 words, check it in the original. It should be, only then will it be foolproof. Okay. If you are cutting and pasting it, of course, it is not necessary. But if you are copying it, please make sure that the quotation is exactly the same. If you are highlighting it using, if you are emphasizing something using italics, please mention my italics. If it is not, you'll have to mention that as well, italics in the original. Okay. If it is from some other source, you will have to mention who has translated it, or if it is your translation, you have to mention that. But those things come in the reference. So see that everything is quoted. If you have used someone else's idea, but you have written it in your own words, please acknowledge that as well. Indian scholars are not very conscientious when it comes to plagiarism. Okay, it is not that they want to intentionally do it, but it is just that I read this idea somewhere, I liked it, I have noted it somewhere, so I use it. Okay, it is not a practice that should be adopted. It is something that in fact should be avoided completely. So if you have used someone else's idea, please say that this is Said's idea, or see. So the thing is, according to Professor Said, see, thing is, see that you avoid these kinds of, when you can paraphrase it, of course, but ensure that the person is duly acknowledged. Okay. Now, you have done everything that you can do. What next? Because your best might not be actually the very best. So what you can do is either hire the services of an editor. If you are publishing a book, or if you are publishing your minor project report, you can actually hire the services of an editor. Editors are not very expensive. Okay, you can pay them according to page or according to the bulk. So they are not very expensive, and actually you can use an editor's services. See, we are all not trained in editing. So you can use an editor services, or else if you are a student and you do not have the luxury to use an editor service, check it yourself using freely available apps like Grammarly. I'll repeat that again. You can upload your article to Grammarly website, and Grammarly will actually tell you whether there are grammatical errors or inconsistencies. It will highlight it and show you. So you can actually get your grammar checked. Okay, the better version of Grammarly is you have paid, but there's a free version available. Okay, so after that, you can also do a plagiarism check. Just to be on the safe side, you can actually do a plagiarism check. Often plagiarism checks are not absolutely dependable, sometimes because they will also add quotations as similarity, and you might come up with a high percentage of similarity, but don't get discouraged, don't get worried. When you check, you will find that majority of them are actually quotations. Okay, but it will also show you if there are actual quotations which should have been quoted, which you have missed. Okay, so software like Turnitin for plagiarism check are very useful, because else you might be actually accused of plagiarism. Now UGC mandates that all your theses have to be uploaded, and you do not want someone coming at a later date and saying that this person's thesis has 30% plagiarism or 80% plagiarism. So you do not want that accusation to come at your door. So it is always better to take a plagiarism check so that there is no overlap, intended or unintended. Okay, most of it will be unintended, because you are quoting something you forgot. You are quoting a phrase you forgot. So sometimes these things can happen. Okay. Now, once all these, someone wants to know about the grammar check website. It is called Grammarly, Grammerly. You can just Google search it, so you can get it. It's free app. You can upload your material and it will come back. Now your paper is actually ready for submission. Okay, or your thesis is ready for submission. But again, your problem is not yet over, because many of the publications have their own formatting. Some of them follow MLA format, some of them follow APA or Chicago manual. You will have to reformat it, or some people actually use footnotes, some people use endnotes. So you will have to actually identify and rework it so that it goes correctly, perfectly, and your publication is smooth. Okay. To find the journals that are available for publication, I'm sure you all know there's a UGC care list, and that's it. Okay. So if you are more, or you can go to Scopus and find a journal that is suitable to you. I would like to stop now, and I would like to take questions. Actually, this is a workshop which I would have actually liked to. Okay, is there a software for checking plagiarism? Definitely. There is the software, the most popular one is called Turnitin. You can ask your university or your college or your library to get it, because Turnitin is a little expensive. But you see, if you have a research wing in your university or your institution, please ask them to get a Turnitin software, because it is useful not just for yourself, it is also useful for your students. It will help you get a better NAT grade even, because your articles will have that kind of a standard. Yeah, it's actually a good investment. I would like to take questions. This is a workshop I generally do for a 2-hour session, I mean a half-day session, with examples, with handouts. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we can do only online. So I would like to take questions. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Thank you.
Thank you. If anybody have questions, please ask. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So no questions means probably they have either understood or not listened. Either way.
Thank you, ma'am, has given very nice informative lecture. Thank you, ma'am. Right from the beginning to the end of the thesis and the paper, how to write, right from media of expression, how to say select area of research, topic, author, then colonial studies, post-colonial studies, reflect of the author's framework, and then bibliography, then plagiarism.
So many things, madam, has very detailed. Thank you, ma'am. And then we are going to start the next session. We have with us
Very detailed.
Dr.
Dr. Rohidas Nitonde from Shivaji College, Parbani. I would like to give brief information about my colleague, Dr. Rohidas Nitonde sir. Sir has completed his PG and he has 14 years of experience, participated in many conferences, international conferences as well as national conferences, seminars. He has participated as a resource person, keynote address. Sir has just completed a faculty development program right from 22nd February to 27th February 2021, which on particularly style project. Then sir has published many papers at international national levels. Sir has given say talks on radio and many media. Sir has a professional training undertaken from various universities. Sir has also created digital initiatives in higher education, in IT sector particularly. His contribution to the institutional growth has acted as the student training and placement cell in Shivaji College, Parbani. Also headed the student welfare and development cell of the college. Also run a spoken English and soft skill development course to effective use of language law for students. Skill oriented IIT online courses for college students. Played key role in the recognition of the college best college award in 2015 by Swami Ramananda Tirtha, Marathwada University, Nanded. He has also played institutional role as a recognition of college with UGC status, college with potential for excellence. He is also the coordinator of internal quality assurance cell. I would like to request Dr. Rohiras Nitonde to deliver his lecture on research method in language and literature. Dr. Rohiras Nitonde, sir, please.
Hello, good afternoon to one and all. I
Good
hope I am
afternoon.
audible.
Yes, 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 sir. Yes, sir.
At the outset, let me put on record my sincere thanks to the organizing committee of this national level e-workshop being organized by MSP Mandal's Shri Muktanand Mahavidyalaya, Gangapur. Its Honorable Principal Dr. Sarnaik sir, the head of the Department of English, Dr. Bandal sir, my friend Dr. Ajay Deshmukh sir, and all my friends at Shri Muktanand Mahavidyalaya, Gangapur. It is only your love that has taken me here in this august gathering among the stalwarts in the field of higher education and particularly research methods and methodology. I know that I am the third speaker of the day. Already two authorities have expressed themselves in detail with their specifications and even the art of elaborate talking and convincing people. Almost all the topics are also covered, and even some of the delegate participants out of these 90 left have already started asking for feedback form. That means it is really not a very good time for me to begin my argument. However, as my dearmost friends, they have insisted me, and it is the need of the hour to talk. When people like the things and they are ready to listen you, then you may talk or you may not talk. But when people don't want to listen you and still you talk, that means it is the need that you must talk. And I think I am on that side of the argument. Why I have to talk here in this research methodology workshop about research is that let us see what a research primer is, what is research methodology, what is research, and let us have an outline, broader outline of the research activities. Mainly, knowing about research is one thing, doing research is another thing, and writing research is the third area. So let us divide it into these three things. First, knowing research. Okay, knowing about research means what is research, how it is done, what are the theories for research. That is one aspect. The second aspect is doing something, because many a time we want to write without doing, writing without doing, writing without knowing research, writing without doing research and having publications. This ruins the future. And if you want to build a sound research career, I would advise you to first read about literature, read about research methodology, try to understand what is research, how it is done, and then at last how people they publish the findings of their research outcome through either research articles, dissertations, thesis, or the book form. Okay, I would be talking about all these issues. Let us not use the chat box. First, let me say my say. Even if you put your questions in the chat box, I would not be in a position to answer them right now. First, let me develop the argument, and then you can have the counter argument, and we may have a discussion for say 10 minutes. Because when the speaker initiated the discussion, the listeners, they are very much enthusiastic and they keep on asking questions, the argument remains behind. And at the end, when the speaker says, "Are there any questions?" and the audience says, "There are no more questions." So I am pretty clear about this. Let us first try to understand my argument. First, let me raise the issues, and then we will have discussion as well. I do agree with you. If you have any doubts, then I am there to clarify it. Okay, so let us see what is this research, and it is there. I know in this gathering we are having participants from different disciplines. Some of you are from life sciences, the others are from the computational sciences, some are from social sciences, and some other are from humanities. So we have a mixed group of listeners. But thanks to the theory of research, we have one common method for all sciences, and that is called scientific method. Scientific method is common to all research. It is universal. And why it is universal? Because it relies upon certain principles. For example, principle of objectivity. It relies on logic. It is factual. It is verifiable. It is empirical. It uses unambiguous language. It is verifiable, reliable, and valid. Accuracy is the key of scientific method. And most important is scientific temperament or approach is the most urgent need of a researcher who is following this scientific method. Whether you belong to any discipline, whether you belong to history, political science, geography, botany, microbiology, or computer science, or let us say cognitive sciences, that doesn't matter. You have to follow basic scientific method, and later on, depending on your subject area specialization, even in that subject, you may have micro specializations, and then there are specialized ways to deal with those specialized problems. And that is how at the later phase, in the advanced phase, we are having research methodologies separate for pure sciences, applied sciences, natural sciences, mathematical sciences, social sciences, language, and literature as well. But the unique method that is suggested by scientific method is of conducting research that involves identification of problem, then review of related literature on the selected topic, then formulation of hypothesis. Once the hypothesis is formed, you are supposed to choose research design, and this research design is very much important. Once you select the proper design for your research problem, then almost your work gets easy. Okay, proper selection of the appropriate design for your research topic is most important. Once you do it, half of your work is done. But for that, you need to work seriously on earlier 3 steps. The first one is identification of problem. Then the second is review of related literature on the topic. Then the formulation of hypothesis, and then selection of research design. It is followed by data collection. You have variety of tools for data collection. Then you have data analysis. Data is there, and data is the thing that takes you to the results. So you have to handle data. So you must develop data handling skill with you. So data collection, data analysis, and then drawing inferences or just interpreting data. Interpretation of data requires scientific approach. If you have scientific temperament, because even the Constitution of India promotes this scientific approach among its citizens. So promotion of scientific approach needs to be the first and foremost target of such workshops on research methodology. Okay, so interpretation and interference was the point that I was discussing. The next step in scientific method is drawing conclusions and generalizing them, making your perfect, making your conclusions, okay, generalized statements. Because when you are finding out a particular solution to a particular problem, it should not be particular solution to that particular problem. You should be able to generalize it, universalization. And once you succeed in generalizing it, okay, then it turns into scientific truth, and it builds the corpora of knowledge in that field. So here is an important thing that even in the first session, the keynote speaker today, he had asked us the reason for research. And one of the important research, fundamental research is carried for creation of new knowledge, innovations, generalization, and then comes publishing the things and taking things from lab to land. Most of the time, our academic research gets succeed in conducting experiments, finding out conclusions, but we fail in taking it to the land. The science that is there in the lab, it needs to reach the land. The knowledge that is there with the classes of intellectual people, the academic scholars, it needs to go to the masses. Once, for example, we see that it took several hundred years for E is equal to mc square to reach to the masses. Okay, so what about your knowledge? What about your research? Whatever you have found, when will it be a common sense knowledge, common, or let us say generalized thing in the universe, in this universe? Universe is large, pretty large, wide. So a researcher must be having a plan ready for that, and that includes the last step in the scientific method, that is research, writing research report or publishing the outcomes of research. This is the broad way that any primer on research methodology will give you. When we are talking about research methodology, you can see that any book that you would have studied on research methodology, because the topic research methodology is in itself a vast topic, and the books that I have studied, maybe a couple of dozen books, they almost all of them, they would be having chapters like meaning, nature, and scope of research, what research is, what are the characteristics of research, and then what are the limitations and what are the other fundamental features of research. Then the next chapter would be describing the process of research. Then subsequent chapters may describe the types of research, maybe descriptive research, experimental research, historical research, field research. For example, the keynote speaker today, he was talking about historical research. The students of physical sciences and material science students, they would be talking about experimental setup in their research. So experimental research is there. Dr. Ajay Deshmukh sir and his research scholars in English, they would be talking about descriptive research, or some of my research scholar who is working in the field of English language teaching, survey-based research, he would be conducting a field research. So the books on research methodology, they may have chapters like tools of research, and would be describing tools like questionnaire, interview, schedules, observation techniques, and then rating scales also. Another important aspect of research methodology is sampling tools. Friends, as I said that half of your success as a researcher remains in selecting proper design for your research. Okay, the rest half, out of half that, let us say 25% is depending on the sampling. If you know sampling methods very well, many times we don't know things and we do things, and that is why results are surprising. So let us be well versed in sampling methods. What are the types of sampling? What is the difference between probability sampling and non-probability sampling? What is I heard someone saying convenience sampling. If you are doing research with a genuine cause, if you want to generate new knowledge, some fundamental research you are undertaking, and for sampling purpose, you are using only convenience sampling, then for God's sake, it would be impossible for you to complete your research. So only probability sampling can lead you to the better results. Non-probability sampling methods, they would be creating difficulties for researchers to generalize their conclusions. So if you are having all these things at your mind at the outset, then it would be appropriate for you to be confident while concluding your research. Because unless and until, as we know that we are very much specific about our scope and limits of the research, but we are not that much specific about sampling, then tools of research and research design. So be careful while you are selecting research design, while you are selecting tools of research, and particularly the sample. Okay, there are certain norms for sampling, and you should know the theory of ideal sampling, because sample should be representative. If you fail in getting the representative sample, then it is quite possible that you may lose your conclusions. Then some other optional elements that you would find in any research methodology books, they are the developing research proposal. Okay, I'm deliberately talking about it because now or somewhere later in your life, you need to develop your research proposal, either for the academic purposes. For example, for completion of degrees, you have to prepare your pre-PhD proposal to the university as a PhD scholar. Okay, or after joining some lab, you have to you are supposed to submit some research proposal with some financial requirements also in mind. Or later on, when you are serving the nation and working as a teacher, you need to undertake the research projects and funded research projects. For that also, we need to know what is the research proposal. Then most of the time, the funding agencies, they prefer the action-oriented research proposal. The problems that are locally relevant, nationally important, and globally significant, they are always given priority. Then your problem statement should be crystal clear in your research proposal. The objectives and hypothesis, they should go hand in hand. You should also be specific in mentioning the sample, then tools, methods of data collection and data analysis as well. And your proposal must have clear-cut dateline. That is what timeline. During what time, what goals would be achieved, and financial details as well. Whether your project would be cost effective or not, that should be replied by you in the proposal. The last point there is also what would be the outcome of the project, and if there is any outcome, how you are going to give it to society, in what form you are going to return it to the society. These are some of the important things that are there in the research methodology books. Okay, today's topic that is assigned to me is about the methods for research in literature and language. Okay, now coming to the specific point. Okay, I mentioned about the design, research design. Now and then, my intention was to indicate only the approaches to study of language and literature. Okay, design is nothing but a structure that we use, a skeleton, a method that we use to study our research problem. And here, it reminds us. I hope that Dr. Ajay belongs to my generation, and Dr. Bandal sir belong to our teachers' generation, and we have our students now with us. So here are three generations together, let us say. When our teachers, they were students, that time they had studied theory of literature by Rene Wallach and Austin Warren. Okay. When Ajay and me were studying, we studied Beginning Theory by Peter Barry and many other books on literary theory. Okay. And now our students, they are studying After Theory by Terry Eagleton. These are the three generations. And when our teachers, they learned theory of literature from Rene Wallach and Austin Warren, we learned it from Peter Barry and Raman Selden and many others, those who wrote about theory. And now our students are learning After Theory by Terry Eagleton and many other people, those who are writing post-theory books. My intention to bring these three generations here is that, see friends, there are several aspects and approaches to look at literature. Even in the good old days, we have had the mimetic, then pragmatic, expressive, and objective approach. Okay, that is what Peter Barry calls it, theory before theory, or this M.H. Abrams calls orientation of critical theories. We had mimetic theories in the classical time. We have pragmatic theories during the Renaissance period. We have expressive theories during the Romantic period. And in the modern period, before the theory began, there were objective theories and people like T.S. Eliot, those who propounded the ideas of objective correlative and maybe these methods of bringing objective element and individual talent and tradition. Okay. So these are the ways to look at literature. If I'm purely talking about the research methods and methodology that one needs to adopt while studying literature, then I need to talk about these approaches, whether they may be mimetic, pragmatic, expressive, objective, or in the isms period, that is what literary theory, we are having several isms like structuralism, post-structuralism, that is deconstruction. Then we have feminism, Marxism, psychoanalytic criticism. We have ecofeminism, new historicism, cultural materialism. Then we have gender discourses, subaltern studies, then post-colonial studies. Okay. All these are various approaches to the study of literature. Because we see that in the earlier times, the author and writer, and the text, they were studied together. Later on, they were separated. In the third time, there became textual analysis. And we have several types of analysis. For the general audience, you can see, friends, you may have a quantitative analysis. I heard someone in the first session talking about SPSS and LaTeX and other softwares that are highly sophisticated softwares for data handling. When you have to handle the complex data and undertake the Chi test and Q test and other tests, and come to the conclusion. Okay, so there are quantitative methods when researcher of English also dealing with the topics like the survey methods and participation of the population in the study, and then observations and finding conclusions. That time, researcher of English even would have to use quantitative methods of analysis, but it is limited when the researcher is carrying research related to some field. For example, if the researcher is talking about the oral traditions of the tribal people or the locals, or he wants to collect some material, okay, linguistic elements, then the vocabulary, maybe endangered languages and their corpora is your topic. For example, Professor Ajay Deshmukh sir may assign a topic to of his student that collect the endangered words in Marathi language being spoken in Satpura region. And when conducting such a study, then the researcher had to go to the people, a large number of people, meet them and record their observations, and then use some quantitative analysis as well. But largely, the scholars of research, literary research, they have to depend on qualitative analysis. And qualitative analysis is largely again content analysis. It is the description of the text. Text is the key source for us. Okay, the data, main data for the researchers of literature is the text itself. And so we have several approaches like textual hermeneutic analysis, wherein meaning from socio-historical context is expected. Then we have structuralism, wherein we have a famous quote that things cannot be understood in isolation and they must be studied in the larger context of which they are the part. Then we have counter argument in the post-structuralist phase, deconstruction, where we say that the meaning of the text is not in the text and center of the circle is outside the circle. Okay. So we have variety of arguments and these approaches are there. Okay. Depending on the text that you have selected, you need to select the approach or say the design of the research. If the design is befitting, then and then only your research can go ahead. We know some researchers, particularly the academic researchers, those who have registered themselves long ago, and even their first 7 years term is expired, they get re-registered, and maybe second time, and when we ask what is going on, they still say, sir, progress is going on. The progress of mismatch of the content, that is text, data, and design. Mismatch of data and design is there. And even that time also, many of them, they are not ready to change either of the two. Okay, the solution is to change any one of the two. Okay, and if you find anybody who is hanged up, then you can just check the possibility to the best of my experience. Most of the time, either data is wrongly selected or the design is not matching or befitting to the data. Then we have several other approaches as well. It would take much of the time if I keep on talking about each individual ism. But those of you who are the students of language and literature, you are already exposed to all these theories of literary analysis. And therefore, it would be a mere repetition if I keep on talking or showing my expertise in structuralism, then deconstruction, feminism, because many friends, they know that I have done my doctoral research on feminism. My students are working on different aspects. One of my research scholar is working on pragmatics. So if I keep continuing on these approaches here at this platform, it would be repetition for the students of literature, and it would be boring for the other participants who belong to botany, chemistry, or life sciences and computational sciences. To avoid this all, what I would suggest is try to know the best researcher. First thing, as I already told in the beginning of my argument, there are three important things that every researcher should have in his mind. First, let us understand what is research. So, know research. Know research, know the theory of research. The second thing is to research. Understand how to carry it out. Okay, properly carrying out the research leads you to the publication of results. Most of the time we are in the hurry, meeting deadlines, maybe because of the unnecessary competition in the departments. My colleague has published so many papers, this and this number of papers in this semester, this year. His or her API is like that. My profile is like this. So do not compare yourself with anyone else. Rather, you determine in your mind as a researcher that I want to do whatever I am doing it with full understanding. I must get myself first clarified what is research. Once I am convinced this is research and this is how it is being conducted, what type of experimental setup is required to conduct a particular research? Do I have that experimental setup? Can I afford it? How long it will take? Okay. Do I have any idea about the time requirement, the resources that I require, the patience that I must have, and then only, okay, initiate your research, tackle with the research problem, and then your research will be in progress. And if you think that things are happening as per your planning, so execute it. So first is understand it, then plan it, execute your plan, and at the end, when you feel satisfied that you could achieve the things that you had in your mind, then only think of generalizing them, sharing them with others. When you have something new to show, then only you should show it to the world. When you don't have anything new, when already people have said it, then there is no need to you to say it again. And that is why most of the academic research is being ignored by the industry people, by the scientist communities. Okay. Why is academic research being ignored by the industry? Why is research not contributing to our national development? And the reason is that most of the academic research is without being aware whether this is in public domain or not. People are hurrying to get published. They think that if they don't publish, they will be perished, as if they would be perished. So my humble suggestion here to all of you is that, friends, if you want people to take cognizance of your research publication, if you want people if you want to create your impact in your field, then certainly you must have to wait patiently till the time comes when you are publishing something that is not published anywhere by any time. Okay. So you may, those who are in hurry, they may keep on leaving the meeting. I don't bother, because I know that research is not a cup of tea of Tom and Harry. It is not an ordinary man's work. It requires great patience. And even if you see the list of the Nobel laureates, I mean, the Nobel laureates for research, they are almost of 70s, 80s, and 90s of their age. So the young people, they may lose their patience, and when you think that you have to go long last, okay, problems, they come, but they don't last. Okay. What lasts long is patience. And a researcher must have patience with him. Okay. For the patience that will create an impact on your field. Your age, okay, physical age is not important. Your existence in literary world. For example, if you belong to chemistry, how many of your papers are in the chemistry databases, abstracts of chemical society? If you are from the life sciences for botany, how many of your abstracts are indexed in the Nature or Web of Science or Scopus databases? Because when you are having genuine research outcomes and publishing, when you are confident that you are publishing something that is not published by anyone else, it would be cited by others. So you may have less number of publications to your credit, but you may have more citations, and these number of citations, they create your impact on your field. Now friends, I am taking you towards another thing. While I was being introduced, you might have heard that I am dealing with one ambitious scheme of University Grants Commission by Ministry of Education, Government of India, and that is STRIDE, Scheme for Transdisciplinary Research for India's Developing Economy. Friends, this is an ambitious scheme because through this scheme, only for the first time in the history of Indian higher education, crores of rupees are being spent by government for the research in humanities. This is the first scheme with mega funding to research in humanities. And I am there as a project coordinator for language and literature domain. I am working there. And I would like to tell you why your research, why you should have patience before you publish your research articles. Because first we need to understand, as again and again I am telling you, first you need to understand what is the theory of research. Then you should have your plan. Then you should execute your plan. And then when you are convinced that you have got some outcome that is not common, easily available anywhere, you have something innovative, something novel, something different, then you can come out for publication. If you publish a few papers with such type of findings, then you would automatically get citations. And the databases, they will take your cognitions and they will rate you. As on today, in our country, we are having only 2 databases wherein people can measure their own impact in their discipline. Okay, the first university in India that became the Institute of Eminence. Do you know which is the Indian university that is declared by the Government of India as an Institute of Eminence? The first IIT, that is Institute of Eminence, is IIT Madras. The Indian university to be the Institute of Eminence is University of Hyderabad. University of Hyderabad is having a database of its faculty, and that database really gives you the impact of those scholars in their respective field. If I ask you a question, what is your contribution to your field, you should know the answer. If you don't know the answer of this question, then how can you convince someone else that you are a significant person, particularly for your subject? So the first database wherein you can get the official government record of your impact on your field is having the database like University of Hyderabad, it is having, but that is limited only to the research scholars and faculty members of that particular university. The second database, which is available to all the researchers in the whole nation, is UGC InflibNet, InflibNet Vidwan database. If you find UGC InflibNet Vidwan database, and if you find your name is there in that database, you can say that you have somewhere contribution of, let us say it may be of a dot, but still you are recognized as a person having contribution to your feed, because that database maintains your impact and it gives you 10 points maximum. Out of 10 points, how many points do you have? People, most of the time, the people with some impact on their field, they have 5 points, 6 points, 7 points. And I know there are some eminent academicians who are having 10 out of 10 points for their impact on the field. You would say, sir, it is vain, it is useless. If out of the 80 people in this meeting, if out of the 80 people in this meeting, maybe 70 are not knowing about these methods and these calculations, and they don't know what is their impact on the field, what is use of your talk. I would say, really, it is must for all to know if you are not there in the list, because the world is rapidly changing, and in these changing days the terms are being changed. As my earlier speaker was referring to plagiarism, friends, it is not only for publications and your degree awarding. Originality is important. Even now, government has started checking originality of research proposals. For UGC Stride scheme, if you want to submit your proposal, at the outset you are asked to be original. It should not be a plagiarized certificate, proposal. So originality is checked at the scrutiny of the proposal itself. It is not, gone are the days that you have to submit, take someone's proposal, submit it by changing some things. Alteration would not be allowed now. Now we are in the digital era, and in this digital era, the ultimate reality is to go for original. And the second thing is, in the Stride, we are having 3 components. Component number 1, 2, and 3. 1 is for the young scholars, 2 is for the mid-career scholars, and the third component is for the really eminent scholars who are having impact in their respective field. And how to calculate that impact? As I said that you are having databases. Most of you might be knowing academia, then LinkedIn. So you may have either government databases, or you may be on the private domain databases. It is important that you should have your researcher ID. For example, all of us, we the citizen of India, we are now having our unique identification number, that is UID, Aadhaar number. Likewise, researchers, if you want to be a researcher, a well-known researcher, you should have your own ID. And the researchers, those who are having the ORS ID, that is ORCID, ORS ID, these are known and they are easily included in the databases of the respective subjects. And that is not have any researcher ID. So friends, it is not only just writing for the sake of publishing. It is for understanding in depth what is research, planning meticulously, and executing with tough time-bound timelines, and having some concrete, verifiable, innovative, novel outcomes, then sharing it with the originality. And while you are publishing, you should take certain precautions. For example, you must take someone's feedback. You should use, writing should be easy to read to the readers. You should avoid using passive voice. You must follow uniformity in standard referencing style. For example, literature people, they use MLA handbook. Social science people, they use Chicago style manual, and so on, so forth. But you may use any one, but stick up to the same for the entire work. Be original. That is the key of success in research, finding, as well as publishing. I think I have taken much of your time. I was not expected to speak this much, but I have a habit of completing things. So without waiting for you or without caring to your comments, I continued for a long time. For that purpose, I apologize to all of you. And once again, I thank the organizers for extending their invitation to me. If there are any queries, I would try my level best to solve because I am not all in one. I may deal with a couple of things. If I don't know, I would not be able to answer your questions. But really, I appreciate your patience and thanks for hearing me patiently. Once again, thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Rohit. What a wonderful speech it was. And thanks on personal level too, as you were also having some issues with your health, but still you stick to your commitment and made it happen here. Is there any doubt or any queries that you would like to seek clarification from the resource person? Okay, as no hands are being raised and there's nothing in chat box. And you were right, Rohit, as you were saying in the beginning,
No
that at
any
the
doubt,
end of
sir.
the question, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So you have given, your speech was so self-explanatory, and you have it was kind of an end on the various aspects of research regarding research in general and the research particularly in language and literature and linguistics too. As you have, make us travel through the conviction in research, then how your approach and methods should be scientific while embarking on the journey of research. At the same time, you focused on the necessity and importance of research design. I still remember when I was doing my research in management science. So, wonderful book by Patricia Levy. It was helpful for me for my research design. And at the same time, when you talked about the app sample designing, so the most important means article that I found in my journey, that was by Kochuran, and it talked about the formula that gives you apt formula to have precise sampling. So that was also an important thing that you touched upon, and you touched upon all the aspects of data handling, like how to collect it, how to analyze, then in inferences are important things, and the various approaches that are being, utilized by a researcher in his research journey. Then you spoke about the publishing. Why there should be patience in you. That is another aspect that you focused on. You have at length talked about Stride, which is in vogue nowadays. It's a prevent scheme for all the stakeholders of higher education. So, scheme for transdisciplinary research for India's developing economy has given different dimensions to research in higher education today. So you have talked about that also. At the same time, it was pleasure to listen to you when you talked about the three generations of research in language and literature. So you talked about theory of literature, then beginning theory that you and me belong to, and then after theory that this generation, that our students are traveling into. And then you talked about the various aspects that can be or approaches to literary research, where you indulged into mimetic, then pragmatic approach, then critical discourses that are very prevalent and useful tools to go through. Then, as you were talking about, field-based research. So I still remember ethnography is one of the most important research method in qualitative research area. Where and there's a always dilemma how. On the one side, when you're talking about very objectivity in the research, And on the other side, when you indulge in ethnography, it is more subjective, more people-based, context-based method that gives idea about the life and culture of people in their context. So you talked about qualitative analysis, then quantitative analysis, where you talked about descriptive and textual analysis, corpora analysis in linguistics. Then the most important thing that you talked about was authors matrices and then journal matrices. My goodness, you on this panel, this discussion and interaction with the delegates across the globe. I'm very thankful to you for sparing your valuable time. I'm also very thankful to the research, other resource persons, Dr. Sangeeta ma'am. She spoke so well. She had pinned all issues that we have suffered. As a guide, when you come across a thesis or as a referee, the referee is plunged into the web of cursive sentences, and you have to disentangle yourself from those all. Try to understand the meaning from when it has started and where it is ending. So she was very particular about academic writing and various processes that from start to end that are involved in academic research. So I'm thankful on behalf of our institute to Dr. Sangeeta ma'am. Also, I'm very much thankful to Dr. Avkash Jadhav sir for sparing his valuable time with us. And it was a wonderful, enriching journey with you all, great people. And at the same time, wonderful audience, like these all delegates across the globe, having their, zeal and enthusiasm in the research. For your kind information, let me tell you that feedback links would be provided into your mailbox so that it would not be mishandled. So please fill that in time. And don't worry, you all will get your certificate within next 10 days in your mailbox. Thank you very much. And I hope that your contribution, your cooperation would be extended in future events organized by our institute. I thank one and all on behalf of my institute, on behalf of my department, head of the department, Principal Dr. Madhusudan Sarnaik sir, Dr. Vijay Kumar Bandal sir, and all my colleagues over here. Thank you very much. With the kind permission of the head of the department and the principal, I declare that the methodology workshop is has come to its conclusion. Thank you very much. Thanks, Roy.